Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel, Say What's Real TV. This review is for Tyler Perry's Sistas, Season 7, Episode 4, Death Becomes Them. So we open up the episode where we left off last week with Mr. Leland having a heart attack. Now they have him dead to the bed, laid out on a stretcher, wheeling him out. So Andy, she couldn't believe that 1 minute the man was going in on her and the next minute he was gone. So while halfway showing any kind of sympathy for Mr. Leland, Fatima and Andy came up with the idea that Jones and Benson, the other two partners, will be looking for a third partner. So they figured if they play their cards right, Andy could be the next person to replace him and manage the firm. So apparently Hayden was thinking the same exact thing about becoming partner. So he decided to call Bernie Madoff, a.k.a. Gary, who he wanted nothing to do with the last time Gary called him. So, of course, Gary peeped game and asked him, "Why are you calling me now? What's the change of heart?" So Hayden told him all about Leland having this massive heart attack while having a heated discussion with Andy, and also how he was the main partner trying to get Gary cased up with the feds. So Gary, he gets in his feelings talking about he knew that Leland never liked him in the first place and now wants to know what Hayden has in mind. So Hayden proposes that, look, I'll help keep the feds off your behind if you help me become partner and destroy Andy. Now here we know that Hayden is only playing in Gary's face to use him and get what he needs from this situation, and that is to distract Andy so that she is one less person to compete with to become partner. Now he knows that he can't hold up his end of the bargain because just last episode he told Fatima and Andy that he told the feds everything they needed to know about him and Gary's dealings when they came to his house. So really there's nothing Hayden can possibly do to keep them off of Gary's neck, because when them alphabet boys come, they already have the information they need. I'm just trying to figure out why they haven't been to Gary's office or to where Penelope is living at. So we then see Zach showing up to the airport randomly to talk to Danny. And, you know, they get their I miss yous out and they banter back and forth. And he tells her he's there for advice as usual. He wants to talk about Karen and doesn't want to be judged because he wants to know, is he wrong for asking her for a DNA test? So at first, Danny was like, so you're trying to call my girl a 304 garden tool? And he was like, no, I didn't say that. I just want to be sure, you know, me and Fatima, before we spend any more time and money. So then Danny was like, oh, so Fatima wants to know. Like, you know, Karen will have a field day with that. So Zach says he just doesn't want to wake up one day, fall in love with a child, and find out that the child is not his, which is completely understandable. So Danny tells him that Karen is alone right now. She's pregnant, trying to put her business back together. And she felt like it was really kind of low of Zach to really come at her for a DNA test right about now. And he kind of understood that when she put it to him like that. So then Zach, he started feeling some kind of way about it and said he'll just tell Fatima just to chill out on a DNA test. And Danny was like, oh no, you'll be the biggest fool in the county if you run around here paying for a child that's not yours. And Zach was like, well, that's not what you just said a minute ago. And then Danny was like, well, I like Fatima and I think she deserves to know. And my thing is, Danny, it's not about Fatima. Zach needs to know. That's who needs to know, Zach. And the fact that he's acting all slow like he needs 1,000 people to tell him this is really annoying as hell. And she tells him that he needs to run, don't walk, and get the test done against his sample. She brings up Aaron, and then she insinuates that there could possibly be a third person involved. She then goes on to say how wild Karen was back in the day in college and how she liked the BBD. And I'm like, well, didn't you like the BBD too? Like, why are we talking about the college days? Now, see, Danny, this is where you were dead wrong. All that talking about something that happened 15 years ago when you were doing the exact same thing, and apparently you never stopped because you've been hunching out of both pants legs since the series started. So I don't understand why you had to go all the way there. Zach knows about Aaron. That should be enough for him to go run and get a test regardless. Why he don't understand that is beyond me. So we go over there to the salon, and Karen, she's sitting at the front desk when Trey walks in with some packages, and automatically she's telling him like those can't be ours because she didn't order them, and she knows Pam didn't order them because she can't, basically calling her a broke joke. So Pam comes around the corner and was like, don't worry, they're mine. I paid for them myself. And Karen was like, well, how was your broke ass able to do that? She tells them that she took out a line of credit. So she says to Pam she hopes she knows what she's doing because she knows a thing or two about getting over your head with these credit cards. So Trey chimes in and says Karen is correct because it took him a long time to pay off his credit debt that he racked up when he was in college. So Karen, she seemed surprised and was like, oh, you went to college? So he lets her know that he was top of his class, and apparently people judge him all the time thinking he's uneducated because they look at him as some hood dude. And Karen looking at him like, I didn't say all that, I just asked a simple question. And he told her basically it's all good. He looks forward to defying even more of her expectations. So he leaves licking his lips, telling them to take it easy, while Karen's standing up there all intrigued, now knowing that he's an educated brother with a little hood to him. So later we see Karen staring off into space when Mama Lisa comes in trying to talk to her, and it was like Earth to Karen. She's sitting there thinking about Trey and figuring that she offended him by acting all shocked and appalled that he actually had an education. She said she thought he was just another hood dude. So Pam told her bougie tail self to stop always judging people all the time. And she was like, oh, am I bougie? Am I a snob? And Mama Lisa had to tell her, yeah, you can be judgmental at times. So she says, if I'm such a bougie snob, how did I end up pregnant from the likes of Zach? So we go over there to the bank with Sabrina, and she is in there working, minding her own business, when pestering Paige comes over there telling her she didn't tell the customer about their Christmas club. Sabrina tells her, if you wasn't so busy over there ear hustling, you could have told them your damn self. So she was like, oh, is that AAVE? And Sabrina's like, excuse me? That African-American vernacular English? I'm like, Paige gotta go. So Sabrina, being better than me, said, look, for your information, I told the customer that when they first got in. But being that you was out there on your third smoke break, so Paige yells out, oh, I don't smoke. Those are mental breaks. And Sabrina was like, yeah, your coworkers need mental breaks. Basically letting her know that they are sick and tired of her meddling, pesky behind. So then India, the regional manager, walks up and tells the both of them that she has a proposition for them. Now, before India could even get out what she was talking about, Paige trying to throw Sabrina under the bus, saying how she just got back and may not be ready for any new responsibilities. And India had to cut her off like, I'm quite sure Sabrina could talk for herself to her readiness and what she can handle. Like, girl, shut your ass up. So India tells them that the bank is in the market for a new branch manager, and she felt like the two of them were on track for manager and that they qualified. And Paige and Sabrina both said that they were interested, and she was glad of that and encouraged them to apply and told them that HR will be posting a position later on that week, and may the best woman win. Who do you guys think will get it? I think Sabrina should have the edge, considering the fact that she actually was the manager before. So we go back over there to the law firm, to Andy's office. Jordan comes in. She tries to greet him, and she basically tells him that she's trying to keep a low profile because of all the rumors about her and Gary that's swarming all over the building, and he don't give a damn. He's still kissing all over her, and Hayden is over there on the phone with Gary and taking it all in with his nosy behind. So they talk about what happened with Mr. Leland, and he tells her, get her stuff. He was taking her out of that place, and she's looking crazy like he's talking about her quitting her job or something. But the only thing he was trying to do was take her to lunch. So she gathered up her stuff, and they headed out. So Hayden's on the phone telling Gary how Andy and her wannabe Obama was headed out to lunch. So Gary was like, he believes that Andy was the one that dropped the dime on him with the feds. Shockingly enough, Hayden said that he didn't think that Andy had anything to do with it because she was just as shocked as they were. So, of course, Gary didn't want to hear all of that. But Hayden does tell him that he wouldn't be shocked if Andy was plotting to take Leland's spot, and he needed Gary to handle that, and told him that he wouldn't let the company throw him under the bus. So not knowing that Penelope is standing behind him taking it all in, Gary's agreeing to Hayden's terms and saying, good, now that we're back on the same team, that B will not know what hit her. And Penelope says, and just what B will that be, Gary? So back over there at the firm, we go to Hayden's office, and Fatima, she comes busting in the door, proceeds to have a seat and cock her feet up on his desk. I'm like, wait a minute, didn't somebody just die in this office? Is nobody distraught? Nobody need a mental day like Paige over there having? Like everybody just doing what the hell they want to do. She tells him, I see you on the phone gossiping. What, you on the phone with your little butt buddy Gary? He says, that's none of your hood rat business. So the two of them go back and forth with the banter. They have some great one-liners. So what it all boiled down to, Fatima tells him that she knows that he's getting ready to try to go for Leland's spot and tells him that that's supposed to be Andy's position. And I'm like, Fatima, why would you go and show your hand? Like, y'all supposed to be moving in silence. Like, why would you let him know that that's what Andy was trying to do? So Hayden thought it was funny. He like, look, this is rich. You mean to tell me the glorified stenographer thinks she has a vote into who is supposed to be running this company? So Fatima says, I may not get a vote, but I could easily have both of your kneecaps smashed into 1,000 pieces. So Hayden looking at her like, what, you threatening me? So she says, my family doesn't make threats. We make funeral arrangements. And Hayden's total demeanor changes because, of course, he remembers getting beat down in that parking lot by Madam's goons. And she tells him if he does anything shady to put Andy out of the position, that's his ass. And she left him there shaking in his boots. So we head over there to Fuel where Maurice and Sabrina are having lunch. And she's asking him, does he think she has a chance to get her job back? And, of course, Maurice takes nothing serious. And he's basically telling her if she beds Paige or India, she might have a chance. So Rich, he comes over to the table and they chop it up for a split second. And Rich was like, I got to go get back to my customers. So Maurice, crazy behind, he looks around like, customers? Like, we know he's a liar for sure. It was like 2 other people in there. So Sabrina asked him, what did he think about Rich? And he said that he was fine as frog hair. And he asked her, were there any red flags? And of course, she brought up the whole thing about him not wanting kids. So Maurice looking at her like, okay, Ann, what's the problem? So she says, Maurice, you know I have always wanted to be a mother. And Maurice tells her, I have also known for you to want blue contacts. This is no difference. Clearly, this is not the subject to be discussing with Maurice. So she has to tell him, look, this is something serious to me. And she looks at this to be a deal breaker. Now, the thing for me is last episode, I said she should have stood her ground just like Rich should have stood his. So what I'm not going to do is every episode when Sabrina decides she want to talk to everybody, next week is going to be Karen. The next week is going to be Danny. I'm not going to sit here and listen to Sabrina constantly say what's a deal breaker, but she's still sitting up in Rich's face every day. All up in Fuel, looking at Rich, talking about, hey, baby, baby, baby. No, ma'am. Either shit or get off the pot. You're going to leave a man alone or you're going to be with him and don't talk about it. So it is what it is. You already know what time it is. You know you want kids. You know you want to be married. So there's no need for you to be sitting up in Fuel. Period. While they're finishing up talking about that, Andy and Jordan walks in. So after 3 episodes, I almost forgot that Rich and Jordan and Tony were even friends. So Rich, he comes over to the table and basically daps Jordan up. And, of course, Maurice over there, Mauricing, and he wants to get in on it. And Rich had to tell him, look, I got you the next time. So we go through all of Maurice and his shenanigans and saying all kind of crazy stuff out his mouth, telling Jordan to get rid of Andy and get with him. Andy had to pull their hands apart, and Maurice was like, his hands were sweaty anyway, niece. So we get back over there with Scary Gary, because now he's shaking in his boots as well because Penelope done call him on the phone. So he's trying to explain and she's telling him, no, you don't have to explain. It's none of my concern. And he's looking at her with the side eye like, since when? So she says that since she showed up at his job unannounced, she doesn't have the right to ask him about his work. And she questions whether it was a work call or not. And of course, he lies and says that it was. And he asks her, so what made her show up? Like, why is she there? She says she wants to discuss their situation because they can't really keep going on like this and they're living in 2 different places. Where actually is Gary living? Because I know he didn't go back to Hayden's house with the feds stopping by over there. So where is he living at? So they talk about the baby and Gary acts like this is his firstborn child, like he has no kids with Jasmine at all. So Gary wants to know how can they fix it, and Penelope was like, well, they took the necessary first steps by having lunch. So neither one of them mentioned the fact that Gary intentionally dropped that food in her lap and that her dress should be totally stained. But no, they had a nice, lovely lunch, and her dress looks brand new off the rack. So make that make sense, but we'll keep it moving. So he says, are you ready for me to come home? And before she can answer, his phone rings and it's Hayden. So Gary is trying to tell Hayden he's in the middle of something, but Hayden is over there scared straight, whining and crying about Fatima busting his kneecaps. So he's telling him we have to neutralize Fatima. And Gary was like, look, we're not after her, we're after her boss. So Gary tells Penelope he has to take the call outside and he'll be right back. So when he leaves up out of the office, Penelope goes searching through Gary's stuff, saying that she knows there's something in there she can use to keep him away from her baby. So she goes to digging and she finds this passport. When she looks at it, it says John Smith. So we get a scene with Zach and Fatima on the phone, and he's telling her that he has no doubts about asking Karen for this paternity test, and she better give it to him soon or she won't be getting one red cent. So Fatima says, it's not like I'm complaining, but what made you change your mind? And he says, it's not what, it's who. It's you, baby. I should have listened to you from the beginning. You've never steered me wrong. And I'm like, Zach, why are you lying? Why didn't you say you went and had a conversation with Danny? Like, what is the point in lying? So we go back over there to the airport, and Danny is clearly feeling guilty for telling Zach to go and get this DNA test. And she's trying to talk herself off the ledge. She's talking to herself. And Tony walks in and sees her and teases her about getting another round of therapy. So he asked her about the grand opening, and she said that it was tense because Karen feels some kind of way that they've been hanging out with Fatima. So Danny says that Karen isn't the easiest person to be her girl, but Fatima is like real chill. So Tony says, well, is there any way that you can be still friends with Karen and be cool with Fatima at the same time? And she says it'll be peace in the Middle East before the two of them ever got along. Now, we all saw what happened in season 6 when Karen saw them in the grocery store, then went to the house and took Michael some stuff, and her and Fatima had the conversation at the door. Now, they both apologized. Karen wasn't ready for all that kumbaya, and that was completely understandable. She was real about her feelings, and that's okay. But to say that they would never, ever get along, we saw a moment where they could possibly move forward. They probably would never, ever be best friends, and that's okay. But did something happen in the last 3 months, or did the writers say, we're going to act like that never happened and we're moving forward to keep the drama going? Which one is it? So then Danny tells Tony that eventually they will have to choose between the friends, and especially after what she just said. And then she tells him that she told Zach to go and get a DNA test, and Tony is over there looking like, I can't believe you did that. So he couldn't believe what he just heard, and he asked her again, and she was like, well, it's not like he didn't want to do it anyway. I just gave him a little push. So Tony was like, you must be really fed up with your homegirl. And she was like, well, maybe. So she goes on to say now she's the one that's pregnant and does not know who the father is. And I'm like, well, Danny, were you ever pregnant and didn't know who the father was and what, got rid of it or something? And Karen judged you for that? Like, what's really going on? So then she tries to play victim and says that Tony is judging her and thinks that she's a bad friend. He told her, I didn't say that, but you are friends with Karen and you're friends with Zach, and he felt like she was caught in the middle. Now, Zach did come to her and ask her some questions or what he thought. Danny could have simply answered his questions with some common sense answers that Zach should already know the answer to anyway. She did not have to add all that extra stuff about Karen, which then placed herself in the middle of what was going on. So then she tells Tony that this is hard for her and that she hopes that Zach does not go to that salon and act a whole donkey because she put that battery in his back. So Tony tells her that he can tell she won't be able to concentrate working the rest of the day, so she can leave. Before he can get all of that out good enough, she got her purse and kissing him on the cheek, talking about, thank you, I'll still go down on you, and hauled ass. So much for this is so hard for me and acting so distraught. So we go over there to the salon and Karen is trying to balance her checkbook and she is looking sad, and Pam comes up and asks her what's wrong, and she's telling her that she has to rob Peter to pay Paul and that she really is in debt, and even though the salon is booming, that's just for the one day. Like, it's going to take a while before she gets her head above water. So Karen is really stressing herself out about her finances. So Pam is telling her once she has this baby, Zach has no choice but to come up off that child support. So we head back over there to Fuel, and Andy and Sabrina, they bring up Karen and wondered, has either one talked to her? And Sabrina says she feels bad for leaving the salon early, knowing that Karen was already feeling some kind of way. Both ladies claim that they have a lot going on at their workplace and that they will give Karen a call later that night. So Maurice started talking to Jordan and asked what was he doing before the city council gig, and he said that he was a coach. So Maurice went into this whole little thing about coaching and all kind of crazy stuff. You know how Maurice does. So it got so bad to where Sabrina was like, let's go. I got to get back to work to save them from any more embarrassment. So after Sabrina and Maurice leave, Jordan and Andy are talking and he's asking her how she's feeling. She says she's feeling a lot better. So then her phone rings and she says, excuse me, this is work. I got to take this. And she answers, is everything all right? And it's Penelope on the other end. And she says, no, Gary, he's been living a double life. And I'm like, Penelope, why are you panicking and over there hyperventilating when you already know that Gary has been living a double life? You knew that when you met Andy. This man had a whole wife. He have other kids. He's been messing with other women. You've seen the rings he's been passing out like they were candy. And you mean to tell me just because you see a John Smith passport, this is what's telling you that he is not who you thought he was? Like, girl, please. I'm sure it's just an alias, but he has never been who you thought he was. So just like Zach when he was on the phone with Fatima and he told that little white lie, Andy actually does the same thing. She tells Jordan that it's a client on the phone and she needed to take this call. Now, mind you, it's his sister. But she lies to him. So she goes in the corner to talk to Penelope, and she's over there panicking, talking about she's scared. She's having a baby from a complete stranger. So she's asking Andy, what should she do with the passport? Should she take it? And Andy is like, absolutely not. Put it back exactly how you found it, but take a picture of it first and send me the picture. So this girl is taking forever and a day to take this picture. She actually got to send the picture. I'm like, girl, take the picture, put the shit back up in there where you found it, and then send Andy the picture. Like, move it, get the molasses out your behind. So she finally gets it all done, sends the picture to Andy, and they hang up, and she goes back to her little spot, and Gary comes back in, and she plays it off, but he's looking like he already knows that she was in there up to something. We get back over there to the salon, and in walks Zach, coming in here with that energy because Danny done put that battery in his back, so he running around like the Energizer Bunny, totally rude, acting like he owns the building. Pam tries to speak to him. He totally dismisses her being completely rude, like, oh, I don't have time for you today, like you ain't even on my level type attitude. So the guests are mingling, having a nice, lovely time. He act like he don't see them. He just walking all through people yelling and hollering like he in the projects. Oh, this nice here. Oh, what the insurance paid for this? You should have burnt the place down a long time ago. Now, you know she didn't have no insurance to begin with because we had to sit through a whole season with this whole salon crap and you running back and forth giving her checks and stuff. So I don't know why you said that, but that's neither here nor there. I just wanted to rant about it. Okay, so he's yelling Karen's name, Karen, all loud, like the people not around. Now, I mean, come on, Zach, you are ridiculous. So Karen comes out and she's like, what are you, if you here to celebrate the grand opening, you're a day late and $1 short. And he summons her over to where he want her to stand. And he's like, look, I'm not coming here to celebrate. So she was like, well, what you doing here? I came here to ask for a DNA test. So Pam drops her mouth wide open and Karen looks at her like, did he really just come in here and say that? And that's where the episode ends. Woo, child. Things getting ready to be off the chain up in this salon. Does Zach have the right to ask for a DNA test? Yes, he does, but there is a way to do everything, and the way Zach handled that was not a good look. What did you guys think about that? Now, each week I try to mention who the writer of the particular episode was. And in the opening credits this week, they actually had the writers from last week in the credits. But this episode here was actually written by Jamey Giddens, who also wrote episode 1. So drop down in the comments, let me know what you thought of this episode. And as always, you guys, thanks for all of your support. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. And I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.